Welcome to Not Starving Artists, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new podcast series that I'm calling Industry Experts, How to Spend Money on Your Artistic Career. Now, this series is going to give you, actors, creatives, those of you in the artistic industries, opinions from a panel of people who have been in the industry for a while on their opinions and thoughts of the best way to use your money to grow your artistic career. As a money coach, I'm going to teach you how to save money without a consistent paycheck. I'm going to teach you how to create longevity in your career via financial stability. I'm going to make sure you have the money available to you to not only spend money on your career now, but be able to put towards future you so you can continue to be an artist long term. And these interviews are going to bring in opinions and thoughts from people in this industry about the best ways to use that money. We could spend so much money on our artistic career, on headshots, on reels, on classes, on coaches, on flying ourselves out to auditions, on putting ourselves up for gigs, on producing our own work. There's so many ways to spend our money that we need to be intentional about which ways are going to feel best for us and give us the best return on our investment. And what's tricky about artistic careers is it's not like you spend money on something and that automatically equals a booking or that automatically equals a callback, right? It's a lot more gray area than that, right? And so this panel of experts, these interviews that you're going to hear every other week, we're going to release episodes in this series. What you're going to hear is different people's opinions from different areas of the field. And it's going to help give you a grounding in what's actually worth it. What do you feel is actually worth it to spend your money on? And what are the ways, because it's also really easy as artists, as creatives, to not want to spend money on your creative career, right? Because you don't see that immediate ROI and it can feel scary to part with your dollars. And so this is also going to help give you a grounding on like, how would it feel good to spend money on my career? How would it feel good to put money towards my artistry in the same way that I put money towards other areas of my life? So I hope you enjoy this series. We've got some awesome guests lined up. Enjoy, and happy creating. Welcome back to the Not Starving Artist podcast. I am so excited to bring you Jeremy Sickles today. He is an agent with DGRW, which is a boutique talent agency. Before that, he graduated with a BFA in musical theater from the Hartt School and then joined the Daniel Hoff Agency and then also worked in the fintech compliance space during COVID. So Jeremy, I'm going to throw it to you. Can you tell the people about who you are and then also how you got where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and I'm really excited. You hit most of the highlights. So I went to the Hartt School where I graduated with a BFA in musical theater. Always realized that I enjoyed the business side of the entertainment industry a lot more than being a performer personally. So I did a few casting internships, some while I was in school, some while I was out. So I worked at what was Telsey and Company. I worked at what was at the time Stuart Whitley before it now has become two different companies. And I worked for Daryl Eisenberg Casting before finding my first full-time position with the Daniel Hoff Agency. Was there for about 5 years, started as an assistant and worked my way up to being an agent. And then COVID happened and COVID was wild, where I feel like we all made a lot of adjustments. So before I worked in fintech, I actually worked on 2 political campaigns. So that was majority of my 2020, which then transitioned into one of my friends who, very strange network of connection, that one of my friends who I was on a nonprofit youth board with for a nonprofit called Back on My Feet was telling me about how they were looking for roles at her old company that she worked at that was in the fintech space. Had no desire or thought that I was going to pursue that. I did, and then was there for about 2.5 years, where Then after that lovely chapter and course, I connected with Matt Redmond, the owner of DGRW, and said, "Hey, can we get back on the saddle of working full time as an agent again?" And the rest is history. So a
Wow.
very winding path, but very excited to be where I am and to get to do what I do every day.
Yeah. So I'd love to know more about when you say like you were always drawn to the business side of this versus like more than performing. Was there a switch when that happened? Did you always know that while you were in your BFA program, or when did that happen for you?
No, that really it really happened my freshman year of college.
Mm.
It actually was funny because I had a conversation with the head of our program where I basically said like, "Hey, I realized I'm actually cool with not performing. Like I love all my friends and I love like seeing them do something, but they want this a lot more than I do." And when I kind of realized that, I allowed myself and with my program, they let me start exploring other aspects. So I got to like assistant direct stuff. I got to work in a producing capacity. I got to work in a casting capacity and kind of put my uh got to dip my toes in every different sector in which I came out of college with the idea of that I want to work somewhere in entertainment and I want to
Mm.
help people. That was really what the two questions came down to. And if I was able to do both those things, I feel like I would be serving myself in this industry. But yeah, it really happened early on because I just find this business so fascinating.
Mm.
At the end of the day, we kind of sell people for a living in the most humane way possible, which is really weird to say and to practice. But how do we do that to make sure that we are honoring the people, honoring the artistry, and making sure that everyone is seen and respected in a most full and wholesome way as possible?
Yeah. So with that, because I know you mentioned this right before we started our recording, but if you weren't
Yeah.
in this field, you also have a personal finance obsession and you would have been in that field helping
Oh.
people, right? So can you tell me a little bit more about the personal finance stuff? And because I know in your bio you mentioned something about Suze Orman. Like tell me about your trajectory with money as a creative.
Yeah, no, my mom was an accountant for her entire career. My dad
Wow.
was always in sales and at one point was a stockbroker. So we were a very financially literate household in terms of
Sounds
talking
like
about
it.
money often,
Yeah.
in which I'm a big believer. Like everybody's kind of annoyed with me about I'm like, hey, we should talk about money war. We should break the stigma of it, which is part of the
Yeah,
reason why I'm
louder, louder.
here today.
Yeah.
Um, but it'll show you how cool I was in middle school and high school growing up is that most Saturday nights I would sit down and watch the Suze Orman show with my mom, which is some of my favorite memories. Um, but yeah, so I was lucky that my parents both talked openly and shared that with me from a young age. And then it just kind of gave me a semblance of there's so few things that we feel like we can control. Money and how we react to it is one of those things that we can.
Mm.
So sometimes it can get a little bit tricky that we don't want to become over obsessive with it. But having that semblance of here is something tangible that helps me in my life and that is something that is the basis of our society. And how do we control that? And how do we make sure that we're working for us instead of against us? And from that, that's where I would be in college and I'd talk to people about budgeting or talk to people about like, how do you make New York work? Or even when I moved here, that knowing that I didn't really have a lot of opportunity and I didn't live on a lot, and still being able to fulfill yourself and make sure you're working and living a lifestyle that makes sense with your means, and then allowing that to continue to reflect and grow as you're growing in your own career, I think is really undervalued, strangely. Like, I feel like we're getting to the point where we're talking a lot more about money, but we're not actually talking about what it means to live your life purposefully that aligns with the money that you make. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's always been a huge passion of mine. And I'm just excited that I get to keep influencing and talking with people about it.
Yeah. So, with then that being how you grew up, you also chose to get a BFA in musical theater before you knew you were going to switch into like the business side of things.
Yeah.
So, did you ever feel like either feel like a starving artist or feel like that was going to be your world after graduation? Like, was that ever a part of what you thought your life would be? Does that question make sense?
No, it does.
Yeah.
I think I made a lot of decisions to go against that stereotype.
Mm.
I think that I worked roughly 25 to 30 hours a week during college between about four different jobs in the anticipation of saying, hey, I need to make this much money because eventually in my junior years when I did my first casting internship and I said I need to basically work what is relatively unpaid while there in New York for 5 months. So how do I make enough money to make sure I have the capacity to do that?
Mm.
When I moved to New York, and again, I'm not trying to put this on a pedestal, but just for the fact of it, I was very lucky that through gypsy housing, if that's even still a thing, and an
I think it's
alumni
called
of my
Ghostlight
school,
now. I think it still exists, but it's Ghostlight housing.
that's
Yeah.
smarter. Um, but I found a room in a four-bedroom, one-bathroom apartment that was like $500 a month when I moved here in 2015. So I I don't ever want to claim, and I don't ever think I was a starving artist, but that was also because I probably overexerted myself, arguably, to make sure I wasn't in the position where I ever feared running out of money.
Mm.
Um, and that extended because even when I got my agency job, I mean, I still worked about 7 days a week in a part-time job in addition to my full-time job for about the first 3.5 years that I lived in the city,
Mm.
which I'm not recommending for one's mental health or physical health, but uh, I think that that's where I kind of overdid it a little bit, if you will, to make sure I
Mm.
didn't fall into a stereotype that I was so aware of.
Sure. I love what you've illustrated here, which is something that I am vehemently passionate about, specifically in the money space, because a lot of times when money gets talked about, it's what do you make? And then that determines the kind of life you get to live. When I
Yep.
think for us as artists and creatives, like our hearts have to lead, our dreams, our gut instincts, our passions have to lead. But then it's then asking the question, what do I need financially to make that dream possible? And what
Yep.
I heard from this story is you were like, here's the kind of thing that I want to do after college. I'm going to figure out how to make it so that I can have the money and support myself while I do the thing I want to do. So that's
Yep.
exactly what we're talking about here of like, your money doesn't have to be at war with your dreams. You just have to then ask the question, what do my dreams require financially?
Yeah.
Um, so that's so cool that that's what your trajectory was. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I think that it just goes hand in hand, which I'm sure that we'll expand upon more, but I think it go hand in hand is that like I'm gonna take an actor concept that I talk to my actors all the time about, but then translate it into just like life in general, is that we will always talk about comparison as the thief of joy in
Mm.
terms of comparing yourself, your trajectory, your career to other people's careers typically is a losing game. And I kind of feel that that's very prevalent in money and lifestyle because just in terms of that conversation as well, uh, I think one thing, again, I'm not recommending any of these practices that I did because I was a little wild, but like the first year, I lived about on $5 of food a day, which
Mm.
basically meant I was like, okay, I have 35-ish dollars to shop with for the week. That means I basically get my protein, my rice, my beans, and things like that because I knew that's what I could budget. However, I do all that because that was something that food didn't really matter to me. Food was not a driver. Food was not giving a lot of excess joy in my life in the way that other things did. So I very quickly said, I don't really personally care in terms of what other people's expectations and what other people's joys bring them, because that is so wonderful for them. And I should applaud them for that, but I should only really reflect upon what is going to be the important thing in my life to be able to continue to move forward. And at that point, it really was my career. And then the place that I spent more of my money was on like ClassPass because that gave me a sense of community. It gave me a sense of urgency. So I said, okay, let me sacrifice or distill this part of my budget to make sure I'm still giving myself something that is going to fuel me and motivate me. Um, while also still being able to live with my means. So
Hmm.
I think it's all of that, so long as we be very selfish in terms of not only what we're going to do with our money, but what it's actually going to add value to our life with our money, because
Yeah.
there's so many distractions that can make you teeter. And how many times has been like, oh, well, I'm going out to dinner with this person who I'm like not really excited to see to a restaurant that I don't really want to eat at, and there goes 70 to $100 for what? When we
Yeah.
can be bold in an alternative of saying, let's go grab a coffee instead, or let's go do this instead, which can be both effective for our mental health in addition to our financial health.
Yes. And like releasing the fear of like the whole cringe fear that is plaguing everyone right now of like, be the one to say, let's hang out at the apartment. Be the one to say, I don't want to spend money on that, right? Like it's okay that we have those conversations.
And I will be, and I am totally, I'm sure that many people have found me super cringe throughout my entire life. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's going to be their opinion, and so be it.
Right. So another thing that I love that you again just illustrated is in our lives, saying yes to something always means saying no to something else and vice versa.
Yep.
So much with our money, we focus on what we're saying no to, and then that makes us feel like we're restricted, like we're deprived, etc. Like I can't spend on XYZ because I don't have the money, versus that focus on what am I saying yes to and why. I'm saying yes to ClassPass because it gives me community, because it lights me up. I'm saying yes to making less in this current internship or job because it's lighting me up, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on those yeses because there's always going to be something that we're saying no to, and it's really easy to focus on that. So thank you again for illustrating all of these concepts just so beautifully with your life story. Um, okay, so my next question then, kind of in this vein, is with artists, right? A lot of artists have limited funds to be able to spend
Yeah.
on their career, right? And there's so many, this is like the disclaimer I'm doing in this series, is that when we're talking about investing in your career, it doesn't mean that you invest in this and that automatically equals a booking or equals a callback, right?
Yeah.
So you could spend so much money on your career and get no traction. You could spend so much money on your career and get tons of traction, and you could spend no money and get traction and no traction. Like there isn't an
Yep.
equation. So we're just grounding that conversation here. So this is all just like experience and stories and pieces of opinion and things to noodle on, right? For anyone listening to this. So with your experience, with your story, with how you perceive money in the world and artistry, what would you say are like three of the best things with the best ROI that artists could invest in their career?
Yeah. That's a great question. Of course, putting the slight disclaimer that this will depend on everybody's own journey, where you're at in your career, everything like that. There's, as you alluded to, there's no one size fits all answer, but I'm going to try and give as many both specific yet also general things.
Yeah.
Um, the first thing is, and not to make this sound cliche, but have a portion of your budget that you don't judge yourself on that is just for your own enjoyment. I
Joy
think that
purchases, for anyone that knows what joy purchases are, we talk about that a lot. It's, yeah,
it,
having fun
it
money.
it's the concept of, again, and I in addition to being an agent, I also teach at my alma mater at Hartt, and do some of their career prep and do some of their showcase preparation, everything like that. And the phrase that I probably say too redundantly is, if you are not a real person, how would I expect you to portray a real person?
Mm.
And we hear all the time of people, for lack of a better term, doom scrolling on a playbill or a backstage or a thing or an actor's access, trying to focus so much of their time and energy to where it can consume them in a way that can become unproductive. So to not find means outside of this industry that also bring you joy, and obviously that comes with financial component, is something that is the biggest ROI, because the people who are allowing themselves to be healthy, well-rounded human beings are usually the ones who will allow them to do the best work, because they're simply getting out of their own way, because this is not the only thing that you're casting your week on. It's not the only thing that you're casting your day on. And that balance is really, really tough. But that's where, if you can literally put your money where your mouth is in that enjoyment, is going to pay off super high dividends.
Mhm.
Um, I think that in addition, uh, I'm gonna say the next one probably for me is in whatever stage you can, because it does not mean seeing a show means seeing a Broadway show, but seeing work in the area where you want to work, being a part of the world, not only to continue your practice of learning and seeing people actively doing the thing, being sure to be as up to date and educated by seeing things so that you're even more a part of the world. You can contribute to conversations when you're in those environments with other professionals that you're trying to get to know you more. Um, so that you continue to be inspired in your own work and you can take things that are going to be helpful or not helpful. I think that seeing work in whatever way you can, again, Broadway, off Broadway, comedy shows, improv troupes, immersing yourself in the world, it's kind of crazy how many people you meet when you're simply just an open patron in an audience. So I think that that also long term gives you a massive ROI. Um,
And before you go on, can you
yeah.
elaborate on what it means to be an open patron? I think this is so important.
Yeah, I mean it so I have to check myself a lot in this
Yeah.
because I always have that critics or skeptical view of I'm going into a show to evaluate a role, to evaluate an actor, to be supportive of an actor, to do something of that nature. And it always feels like I'm going to a show to do a job.
Mm.
And yet, if you are able to go, because number one, you're likely in this industry because you love it. So allow yourself to love and enjoy it. But the amount of people, and this sounds so dumb and woo-woo, but the amount of people I've struck up a conversation with in the seats next to me, or the amount of people who I went to a show and I saw someone who I knew, or a friend of a friend, or someone that I knew of, and I strike up a conversation. We talk so much about networking, and those are the moments to me that are by far the most impactful because you're in an entertainment space that is going to be invaluable and you are open to where if it's not just I'm seeing this show because I think I can be cast in this role, so I'm just putting all of my attention into the role and what the actor's doing currently. No, you can also go and enjoy the show. And then you can also be open to seeing who is around you, what is around you, and then sometimes things just happen. So
Yeah.
I think there's absolutely time to do research and development on yourself as it relates to a show, but you should also allow yourself to be a human being in those spaces because when you're open and just human, usually things will happen in some capacity.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for elaborating on that because
Yeah.
I think also a part of this, which you also mentioned this before we started recording, is that you're not on Instagram that much, right? You don't do a ton of social media. And I see so many people before a show like scrolling or being in their own space instead of, right, just sometimes, and that just means sitting in silence and like being, again, being that open patron. So
Yeah.
can you speak a little more to that or even like the Instagram
Well,
social media piece of things?
and even it's a great example because even in most situations, you're going to get a playbill. So
Yeah.
it's also the fact of like, as part of that is, I mean, reading the playbill is seeing where these actors are, what they're doing. Do you have a degree of separation? What else is going on that you're not aware of? Uh, I don't know. I actually this is a very random tangent, but one of my very good friends before we saw a concert last night, we went to an F45 class together, and he works in casting and is one of my best friends in the world, and he is one of those people who can talk to anybody.
Mhm.
I brought him for the first time as my guest, and he started conversations with like three different people who I've never spoken to or never met in this environment. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like, I think
Yeah.
I'm personable and you're just amazing in that way.
Mm.
And that's obviously not meaning that we're entering every conversation with a goal or with a mission or to saying that we're trying to get something out of it. It is just being in an environment, allowing yourself sometimes to make eye contact with someone and even saying hi or saying, have you seen the show before? And I think that what's invaluable, sorry, so many tangents. I'm really
No,
enjoying
this
this.
is all so good. Keep going.
But I think that also in this concept of networking and this concept of like building reputation in this industry, people are so fixated on either agents or casting directors or directors. When I have gotten so many opportunities because of people who are literally patrons of the arts, who then have friends in other sectors, that remaining open remaining that you can strike up a conversation or you're open to a conversation, that you are letting the art affect you and letting it in the shared communal experience, being a part of that atmosphere and environment, just kind of allows you to see what happens and be open to a conversation, a connection, a spark of idea, whether that's internal or external. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And also even just like taking all of that up to package it into like why it's important to go see live theater. It's not just to see the show. And of course, the conversation too of, why would I spend $45 to see a show when I could go just like watch a movie on Netflix? That's not really an artist saying that, but like that is a lot of the conversation.
No,
And I
of
think
course.
it isn't just about seeing the thing. It's about the environment you get to put yourself into, all the people you get to, portals of opportunity, or just even portals of connection, right? That you put yourself in the
Yep.
vicinity of. It's the importance of live performance, I think, in general. So that
Yeah.
was beautiful tangent.
Uh, and I owe you one more.
You do.
Uh,
Third one.
I think the third one, this is going to be a little more general of a concept than
Mhm.
a specific um, instance, but I will say, where possible, quality over quantity. There are certain things in this industry that I think it is worthwhile to save up for and invest in,
Mhm.
so that you have the quality ability to rely on that. So I think like one of the biggest things is headshots, which is going to be one of the biggest likely investments that an artist will make. But I think that because there are so many fabulous headshot photographers in the city, and I think that you are allowed to say, I'm going to put X amount of dollars here, and I'm going to make sure that even in the week leading up to it, like, does that mean I'm using chapstick for the 2 weeks beforehand? Does that mean that I'm drinking extra water and I'm trying to get extra sleep again for the 2 weeks beforehand? So that with a qualified artist who is taking your headshots, that you will have something that will last for you for 3, 4, 5 years. Because I think that there's often uh, I think there's often an easy band-aid, for lack of a better term, that people will often go to fixing a resume, fixing a headshot, or potentially fixing a website, things like that, where it feels like these are the things that we have in our control. And if something's not working, then I must need new headshots. And allowing yourself in these instances to invest in the quality will help give you the reassurance in those moments of, no, I've done this part of my job. It's not worth it for me to drop another couple $100s on this thing that I already have a quality product on. Let me trust my investment here and figure out where else I can invest my time, resource, and energy that's going to actually give me a return on investment, as opposed to something that feels like a change but might not actually be the most productive. So focusing on those quality decisions as opposed to those like quick band-aids, I think is the best way to continue on that return on investment journey.
Jeremy, that's so good. That's so good. And it's so important because, yeah, there, especially with how our industry works, you can be doing everything right, doing
Yep.
everything you possibly can. And then there's an element of luck. There's an element of what's right for you at the right time and what you're destined to
Yep.
do in this industry. And so there's not always something to fix. And sometimes there are things to fix. I don't love that word, but there's things to put your energy into and your
Update,
time
of
into.
course.
Yeah, that I think are usually more focused on craft and relationships than it is about actors access, resume, how things are lined up, the headshots, the even
Yeah.
sometimes the footage. I think we can get so fixated on our footage, right? So yes, I love that. And you've already touched on now the next question, which is what do you think is the biggest waste of money? Or what have you, it doesn't even have to be a general waste of money, but are there
Sure.
instances you've seen or know of that money has been wasted, quote unquote, on
Yeah.
things that didn't have an ROI?
Again, I think I'm going to give a general example and then a specific example. The general example is ones where you feel like you're required to when it doesn't feel right for you. I think that, again, that expectation, that assumption that this is what must be done. Like I wish we could look at certain things in this industry as prerequisites, like having a headshot, resume, actors access profile, things like that. Those are prerequisites, but we don't also have to have all the bells and whistles as long as we have a quality product that we feel confident in. So you don't need to do these extra things unless you want to do these extra things. It's not required of you. Um, I think a specific great example, which in saying this is not me discrediting any business that does this, but I think it's worthwhile to say we are in the age of self-tapes to where so many folks now have literally a catalog of footage on themselves, and hopefully a catalog of footage that they feel very proud of, in which I don't think that it's necessary for someone to get a filmed instance of themselves from a where you'd have to invest money on that because you already have a catalog of self-tapes that you feel confident in, or I hope that you feel confident in, that can be representative of you. When we talk about reels, for example, there will be folks who have an established TV career or have B-roll of Broadway shows or regional productions of whatever, where you can collect and compile those clips into something that is achievable into a professional reel. On the same breath, more than something that's necessarily done by a third-party company, after those traditional reels, I will usually go to self-tapes for pitching people where I go, hey, they just did very good work in this exact style they're looking at. Here's an example of them doing it, which doesn't cost anyone any more money to do so, so long as you're believing in the quality. So I would encourage people in terms of at least where we are in the industry currently, that if you are working on your own material, that you are filming your own content, if you are using self-tapes, if you are using these things, then you might not need to invest the money in a different company or entity that is doing essentially the same thing for you when you have something that might work out for you, you know? And that's my big like word of the year that I'm trying to feel more is discernment, in which everyone is going to have a different journey of what's actually going to be impactful for them there. So look at your materials, look at your lifestyle, look at all this, and allow yourself to have the discernment to judge. This is going to be impactful. This can potentially help move the needle. This can potentially be good for me or healthy for me, versus I'm not sure if this is going to be productive for me. I don't know if I feel like I have to do this instead of me, I want to do this. And if you're getting those vibes, then it's probably not the best spend for your dollars, which we all live in New York City, or a lot of us will live in New York City or any metropolitan city. Those resources are limited.
Yeah. And the energy of I have to, if you're feeling that energy, yes, sometimes it is marketing or even just like the doom scrolling and like how people are creating content, right? Of like, this is how I did this, or you have to do this in order to do this. That's part of it. But then I think when you're feeling pulled towards that, like, I have to, I have to, I have to, there's
Yep.
something deeper there of like, where are you not confident in your work? Where are you not confident in or having faith in what you're here to do and where you fit in the industry? Like, I would say that if you're feeling pulled towards that have to energy, it's because there's something deeper there. That doesn't mean you can't invest in that thing in the future, but like, let's work on what is that thing there before making that investment.
Wait, can I give you a fourth ROI? Because
Oh
that
my
just
God,
sparked
yes.
something.
Yes.
I mean this full-heartedly. I can't believe I did not mention this earlier. The biggest ROI is gaining a group or a network or a tribe, whatever word we want to use, of close-knit friends who are in similar-esque positions as you are, but are gonna be honest with you. I
Mm,
think one of the main reasons why my main thing has never been social media and has not been for me is that I think that there is a culture of going to polarization on social media. It typically is I'm all in or I'm all out.
mm,
Whereas the greatest relationships, the greatest gut checks are going to be the friends who you trust their quality of taste and time, but you trust their judgment that they're going to be honest with you and they're going to be honest with you about the nitty-gritty details. So knowing that when you are having moments of feeling, I don't exactly know what the right things to do is. I don't know if this is an expectation on me or if something I want to do, that going to those people who you know are not just going to gas you up for the sake of gassing you up, but instead be like, I know you. I think you're getting in your own way, and here's why. I know you, and you should do this because you've inhibited yourself and you've stopped yourself from doing this before. Go for it. That is the most invaluable thing and is so important. And quite frankly, is one of the only reasons why I've had a career to begin with. So
Mm.
I just really, really think that there are always going to be days that we are feeling uh, that we're feeling really down on ourselves or feeling like we have no idea or that we don't know how to make those judgment calls. And those are the days that we can rely on the folks who are closest to us that we're trusted in there. And
Yeah.
those are the people who often grow with you and you just have the most remarkable experience with. So when we have those days of like, what is the right decision? We have those people in our corner for that reason.
Yeah, I love that. And when we're talking about like return on investment, right? There being a literal time and energetic investment in building that, right? Because friendships don't
Yep.
just happen. Those kinds of groups don't just happen to you, right? Like it feels
Yeah.
like they did in college or whatever. But there is an investment. And then also, if we're even talking monetarily, like those are the people it's worth to spend money to have a dinner at your house for those people, or those are the
Yes,
people it's worth to go out and get coffee with, or like go to a show together with, right? Like those are the people
exactly.
that are worth it. Um, Amazing. So there's a couple of last questions here as we end out. The first one is with a lot of the things that are just in the zeitgeist, there's a lot of doom and gloom and pessimism. I mean, just like our country at large, all of
Yeah.
it is very valid. Our industry, right? Especially like post COVID, it just hasn't ever been the same. We're all just trying to figure out this new frontier. I think there's a lot of just heaviness, but then also a lot of people yelling about like this is the way or this is not the way. So I'd love to hear from you. Is there any like myths you want to dispel, narratives you want to speak to, words of I don't even want to say encouragement, but anything you want to share
Yeah.
in that realm?
Yeah, I will start by saying I am naturally an optimist, so I apologize for probably the rose-colored glasses of the conversation. But to say this is that if I did not have hope and belief in our industry as a whole, I wouldn't have left the financial sector to come back into the entertainment industry.
Mm,
And I consider myself a pretty smart person and I trust my gut. So something has to be there. I just believe it. And this is also is influenced because I come from the financial sector or spent 2.5 years in it rather. But uh, I think that in addition, our industry has gone through a lot. Like, let's just put it there between strikes, between COVID, between the fact that you can argue that our industry pre-pandemic also was, for lack of a better term, it was a little fat. It was a lot of different companies who were fighting for eyeballs rather than profits. So there was such a stream of additional things coming out. Um, what I will say is two-part. Number one, no one knows what's going to happen. So anyone who's claiming that they know what's going to happen is just trying to do it for whatever reason they have. No one knows, and we can take a little bit of peace in the unknown. It's stressful, but that doesn't mean it needs to be all consuming. The other aspect is that, unfortunately, in our society, we are incredibly dominated by the top dog kingpins of the industry. And as everybody knows and has probably read about, between everything that's happened with the changeover in Paramount, everything that's happening currently with the Netflix bid for Warner Brothers, the attempted hostile takeover, there's numerous podcasts and things you can read. The top of our industry is not settled. It cannot be expected that we will know what our new exact pattern or normal to prepare is until the financials of the top are settled. Here's what excites me in terms of a couple trends that I personally see that gives me hope. Number one, I'm not claiming that there's going to be a recession or that we are not in a financially unstable situation. Historically, at least, though, the two industries that typically go up when there is a time of economic downturn is alcohol and entertainment, because people have always wanted escapism. So, funnily enough, usually entertainment in some capacity has good outlooks when
Yeah.
things are good or when things are turbulent. I think it's going to be very interesting, especially depending on how everything works out. And so long as the Netflix buyout of Warner Brothers continues on, is that we are seeing an attempt of a new form of cable.
Mm,
Obviously, we have mainstream network television, but with what I would really watch out is the continued work of the Disney, Hulu, and ESPN bundle that basically would create not a new age streaming service, but a new age streaming cable service.
mm,
And if there is a consolidation that continues, will there be theoretically two to three to four of these bundled cable services, which then hopefully inspires competition again for more things to happen and for more content to become competitive? Um, while we went through a crazy time with the Broadway League as of recently, we still know that New York City and tourism, which again is a difficult impactful thing, because what we really actually need in most of these metropolitan cities is higher tourism, which is a whole nother conversation and podcast. But in doing so, the Broadway ecosystem has remained relatively resilient as the years have progressed. While it is frustrating for actors because there are less jobs, because there's not 40 things that are opening this season, there might only be 29 to 30-ish things opening this season. At the same time, that means because shows are staying open, because shows are staying financially viable in these commercial spaces, and people are still able to come see it. There's a lot more we can break down about that, but at the end of the day, if we continue to make good art and good products, things will remain competitive for people's wallets. And that is what I am continually energized by, and what I'm excited about, and why so much of my job is to continue to be excited and passionate about my actors to do their best work possible to continue to contribute to that ecosystem, to hopefully get financial compensation to be a part of that work. So I will get off
yeah.
my high horse now, but that's
Yeah.
where my hope and my feeling comes from, which can be considered very optimistic. I could go in debates with a lot of people, and we could always dissect and break down these different points. But I would not be in this industry if I did not have optimism and hope for the future of our industry.
Right. And I'd venture to say all of us have that at somewhere in our gut. Otherwise, we would have given it up, right? Like you have to
Yeah.
believe that we are going somewhere. I just want to say everyone should save this episode, bookmark that spot right before that tangent started. And anytime you need a morning meditation when you are feeling doom and gloom, just listen to what are the business financials telling us. I think that's so like when you follow the money or when you look at the business side of it, there is hope there. That's why I'm not scared about like our country going to shit economically because you look at the top, you look where the money is, right? Like it's, there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that you can discover there.
That is part two of this podcast.
Exactly.
We could have started there.
I know, right? Okay, so final question for you today,
Yeah.
to end on this note. What is one of the best things that you personally have spent money on in the past couple of years?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, this is so dumb. But anybody who's ever been in my apartment or any of my friends will claim to this to be. I bought a recliner for my apartment. I was lucky enough when I was in the financial industry that I was able to buy my apartment in 2021 right before all the rates
Wow.
hiked. And I love my apartment. I'm so grateful for it. But like the moment I became an owner was I bought this recliner from Raymore and Flanigan. It power lifts you to standing, legs go up, back goes, the headrest adjustment, and everybody calls me a complete grandpa for it. But I now have this visualization of like, you done good, kid. And that is
Yep,
the thing that I will walk out of my main room every day. I will see that and I go, you done good, kid.
that's Papa's chair. So great. I love that so much. Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing everything you did today. Is there any place that you can direct people to find you or the projects you're working on, or even if it's not related to you, a place you want to direct people?
Yeah, I not really for me. I mean, I do have an Instagram. I do have a Facebook, I guess. But no, I mean, I'm out and about. I'm sure you'll see me. I will always say hi and do my best so long as I'm not buried in a fantasy football podcast. So just forgive me if I have my headphones in. Um, Otherwise, I will just say go see theater, go see some of our clients, go see people out and about, and I hope to see you all out there in the ecosystem.
Amazing. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.